hey, I'm Andy Martin.
Hey.
Thanks for joining in.
I'm the one who got convinced you to do this.
Oh, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. So, good afternoon. After kind of an exciting talk from everybody about, user groups and everything, I think this is kind of user groups applied, I guess, doing a game jam. So, around December, I'll just start with a little backstory of why we did Global Game Jam. Around December, the organizer for our Unity user group took a job at Armature Studios in Austin and left him. Instead of handing it over to one person, he sort of handed it over to a group of people. So I became a co-organizer of our Northwest Arkansas Unity user group. And we just went around the room and said, what ideas do people have? And I was like, let's do a game jam. And someone said the Global Game Jam was coming up soon and worked with timelines. So we'll get into the details of why maybe you should have gotten started a little earlier than 1 month before the actual thing of the game jam. But I guess a little bit before that, I'll just talk about me. I live in Northwest Arkansas. I went to U of A. That's where I got my degree in computer science and physics. I wanted to do games. We didn't really have a program like that, so kind of jealous of the Tulsa group and what all of you guys have available to you. But I got into USC. I got a degree there and learned a lot, went into the industry for about 4 or 5 years, and started my own game company because I was tired of living in Los Angeles, and I was newly married and just wanted to run my own company and have money go a little farther. So here's a little bit of my career. I worked on the game Zaya, which was an iPad game. I was an audio software engineer, and essentially you could sing into this app or tap drum beats out, and we had a little drummer that would do really cool fills, and we rendered all this stuff in the cloud so kind of anyone could make a professional sounding track. We had like Pro Tools and all this professional VST software in the cloud. And then I went on to a mobile app called Diddy. We got some Star Wars IP when episode 7 came out. And so we had a Star Wars themed version, which was pretty cool to work on. And I was a front-end developer on that using Xamarin. But I got a little tired of mobile apps and just wanted to do games. That was what my goal was. So we'll get into game jams. So as I was hinting at earlier, it's a really good idea to start early. I'm sure people probably entered later than I did, but Global Game Jam recommends that you start your site in October. So that's when you're supposed to, and to even start a site, you have to have a location selected, you have to have like a lead person selected and all that kind of stuff and sign all the rules. So we got our site registered, I think, the first or second week in January. So I would say start early. If you're thinking about doing a Global Game Jam or joining one, look now. There were some people actually that had planned to drive to, I think, the Game Jam in Little Rock, and then realized there was one in Fayetteville, and so they were able to change their plans and not have to drive so far, which I guess we poached those people, but I was happy about it. Another important thing at the very beginning is to sort of decide what you want in your game jam. Do you want food and accommodation type stuff for people, or do you want it to be kind of a free-for-all? And I think that's where you sort of need to decide what the pros and cons are of whether you want it to be free or charge a fee. We did the fee-based route. We were really happy with it, but we did get some outcry from people. And we understood their concerns, but we provided a lot of food. Like, I think we had 5 meals, and we only charged $20 to even go. Like, I personally put down a few $100s for the project, so to me, it fell on deaf ears. It's like, I can't feel sorry for you that you don't want to pay $20 for like a whole weekend. Also, cool thing about having the fee, every single person who registered came. So they were already committed, had the buy-in, and they wanted to do it. And I thought that was awesome. I got on the Global Game Jam, so there's a Slack page where everybody's sort of communicating. And one guy said that he'd had like 9 signups and not a single person came. Oh. Yeah, right? It reminded me of being in high school and a teacher had a party at his house. And on Monday, he told us all, like, my wife made all these treats and all this stuff, and no one came, and no one even said they weren't coming. And oh my gosh, we felt terrible. But there was an ultimate frisbee tournament that weekend. No one was going to go to this physics guy's house over the ultimate frisbee tournament. So, but I still feel bad about that. Anyways, those are some decisions. Also, get help. There's a new place at the University of Arkansas called the Brewer Family Entrepreneurship Hub, and they run a lot of events. We actually have our monthly Unity user group meetup there, and so I had a sort of relationship with them, and I had gone to a startup weekend. If you guys know what startup weekend is, or if you don't, it's sort of start a business in a weekend. So you come in, you get paired up with a team, you put together a project plan and pitch it on Sunday. And so, not really knowing anything about Global Game Jam's philosophy or what they wanted out of it initially, I was sort of coming at it from that startup weekend perspective. Like, we'll all come in, people will come up with their ideas. There's a theme that Global Game Jam presents, so no one can really have the idea ahead of time, right? So they get in there, and the theme this year was, what does home mean to you? So everybody thought about it, pitched ideas, and did group formation. It was really cool, and I think the Brewer Family Entrepreneurship Hub, which is designed to host like 100, probably 150 people pretty comfortably, it was awesome for us because we only had 20 people. There's a lot of space, but think about your space. Global Game Jam, you can't really half-ass it. They have a lot of requirements. I recognize you. Did you show a game right next to me last year? Is your name Bun?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me like 3 hours to think of your name.
I heard you talk this morning, and
I
was like, I know that guy, whatever. And then I saw the sticker on your laptop, and I was like, oh my god.
That's the same laptop from last year. So I presented a game that I'm working on called Consortia last year with my then pregnant wife. Now we have a baby, so it's a lot different. But
congrats.
Did you ever release your game?
We're getting ready to.
That's nice. I still haven't. If I have time after this, I was going to talk just a little bit about development and process and all that. But I still haven't released it. Working on a game. So my company's Moonlight Games, which is basically a play on I'm moonlighting. I do a lot of other work, even with my own company, which is called Moonlight Games. Right now I'm doing 40 hours a week developing on this Android title. So all of my own personal work gets sort of relegated to the sidelines, but we're growing. If anyone's interested in any opportunities, apply at moonlightgames.net. We're looking to bring some people into Bentonville, but mostly we're a remote team, travel in Los Angeles a lot. There's a Tesseract Hub. I'm just sort of plugging all these things because this is big time game development stuff going on that a lot of people don't know about. The Tesseract Center is phenomenal. They have like 15 people on their staff, ranging from senior software engineers and lead directors of art and everything, all the way down to about 10, give or take, interns that flow through the program. So it all started out at the humanities program at the U of A. A Latin teacher wanted to build a museum that looked like real Rome in Unity. And actually, I didn't work on it, but in 2000, I think he started in 2009, and in 2010, I talked to him about joining, but I was graduating like that semester, and it just, like, the timing didn't work out. But I still kind of regret it because I could have done it that semester, and I thought he was just kind of small potatoes, and like now he's developed this big center, and they're doing a lot of stuff with crystal bridges, and they're sort of focusing on virtual reality right now. But all these groups came together to make the Global Game Jam a success. So that's where we get into promoting. It was really nice that we had such a large group of the organizers. You know, there's the lead organizer and then 4 of us co-organizers. We really used this Global Game Jam to sort of kick off how we were going to organize our group all together. We created a Facebook group. We created some other different ways that we started to reach out to people other than just meetups. So if you have a Unity user group, Unity pays for your meetup fees to have like the professional meetup account. I think we have like 300 members right now, not that they all come, but people move away, you know, deregister or whatever. Anyways, it's nice to have all of that stuff set up because now we have events, we have other ways to promote them. So a lot of learning experience figuring out how to do it. things that I would like to do better this coming year with more time. Definitely want to reach out to the schools around. There's a place called, well, it was called the New Design School, now it's called Pixel. Have you heard of that? David Kersey, who is a lead animator at Pixar, moved to Northwest Arkansas and runs this school. And there's been building, there's just a lot of good opportunities, I think, in Arkansas and just in this area in general. And I think one of the problems with our area, and maybe Tulsa doesn't have this as much, but we can train people, but there aren't jobs for them to get. So unless they start their own company like I did, and like the other game studio, Brain and Brain, or Tesseract, unless you do that, I mean, you have to move. Our lead organizer, Keenan, had to move to Austin to really get, we can get in Dallas or something, but my goal is to grow that community around here, and so that's what I get out of these promotions. It's not really for myself, I just like Northwest Arkansas. I would consider Tulsa sort of in the region, the same area, kind of circle of an hour and a half's drive to the airport and such. Anyways, promote your global game jam. We got about half the people who came weren't even in our user group, and we never met them before. And we just put like $20 or $30 to Facebook ads. We did get some crazies, you know, the guy who was so mad about the $20 fee after he'd already signed up, and then he didn't come, and he let us know he wasn't coming.
You seem crushed.
If he'd asked, I would have just waived his fee. Like, he just wanted to make some noise. And definitely use the Global Game Jam resources. My wife and I spent forever like putting together all of this stuff. And then Global Game Jam was like, oh, by the way, you know, look at this link we've had up for months. And it was like the same shit that we had just spent forever, like trying to plan out schedules. And their schedule is super, super duper handy. I can't really read this very well, but we sort of took this to heart as far as, you know, providing lunch and providing breakfast. And we really wanted the group to have snacks. We wanted everyone to feel like they sort of lived in this area and could do whatever they wanted in there as long as they're enjoying themselves and making games and talking about games. But, use the Global Game Jam resources. They have so many things that they require, and there's site requirements. I know someone said a kid was there. Like, there's weird rules about that too, legal guardians and stuff. The kid, like, you can't even have high school kids in your Global Game Jam if their parents aren't with them. Which sort of says, as a tangent to Global Game Jam, just jams in general, you know, you might want to find the jam that fits your group's style. So if you guys have a lot of high school students or something, you know, my thought would be Global Game Jam's not right for that group. You know, maybe you want to do a Ludum Dare or something like that, or gosh, on Game Jolt that someone was showing earlier, there's a jam every second. It's like, so definitely use that. We sort of blended a new logo that we'd made. I don't think Unity would approve it, but we sort of popped that little logo right there in Northwest Arkansas and claimed it for ourselves. And I think this is cool because it was a group effort. I came up with the design idea, and an artist on our group actually sort of took what I did and made it. He hand drew that little low-res Arkansas and did it himself, and I thought it was pretty cool. So we used this poster to show off what we were doing. And, you know, some people hated it. Like, the artists in our group were like, why would you put Fayetteville so big, you know? And we're just like, we just copied this thing. Like, this is me and my wife trying to make this game jam happen in our spare time. And she was just doing me a solid. Like, she doesn't even really like games or anything like that. She just wanted to be helpful. So here we get into the fun stuff. Team formation was so fun in this group because everyone pitched. And then they got together and said, well, I'm an artist, or I've never used Unity before. We actually had 2 people come who had never made a game. One guy on Facebook had said, I can't join, I don't know how to use Unity. And we were like, hey, there's this set of tutorials. It's like, do your best. If you want to come, all are welcome. Like, we'll teach you when you get there. So he and her came. She was a character artist, and he was a 10-hour tutorial veteran of Unity. And they actually used the 2D toolkit and made a playable demo at their level. And actually, their game is probably the most complete of any of them, which is so cool. We'll talk about some of the other games that came out. But team formation was pretty critical. It's kind of weird because people aren't into it. It's just like an hour in, haven't even gotten to know each other yet, and all of a sudden they're in teams. And then, you know, the next day they realize, like, well, this is the group I'm going to spend the rest of the weekend with. I feel lucky that I got in the group that I did. But, you know, other people, maybe, everyone was happy with their groups, but I saw some people underutilized. I think it might have been useful to have some people be in two groups. There were these two artists, and they made all the art for the game that was needed, and then they're just done. We just kind of coasted for a day. I think it would have been nice to realize that ahead of time and help them be a part of a different group. And various levels of knowledge. You know, people don't all come in there knowing what they want to do. So it's sort of the lead organizer's job to keep people happy. But here we are, all happy. Everyone's having a good time. I'm talking with this crew. They were actually the only ones that weren't using Unity. They used, these guys are like Walmart backend software server guys who like to just do hackathons. So they were like, so what's home mean to you? I don't really, it's very loosely tied to that theme, like by the time we came up to it, but they made a game where you just have these pictures and you take a selfie and they would automatically capture the face and put it onto the selfies, and then it was like multiplayer and people would vote on just which photo they liked better. And it was pretty cool. Very, very much fit into the mold of what can you do in one weekend. We had another team, this guy and this guy. They had such an ambitious project. It's beautiful. If you saw me running around on that Roomba a little bit before the thing, that's what they made. So it just sort of depends on what you want. They really wanted to mess around with shaders and game design theory. And this group spent as much time talking as they did developing. And this group spent like all the time developing. And you can kind of see it, like this one's more pretty and this one's more functional. It's great. I think it's awesome to have the different groups and people being able to focus on what they want. These two people actually were new. They'd never been in our group, and like now they're showing up to the meetup, so it's really awesome. This one's just sort of a little, I can't go too deep into it, but you need to follow the inclusiveness and code of conduct guidelines that Global Game Jam comes. You've got people you don't know coming into the event. You know, give everyone like a level of respect, but trust is kind of earned. We just had one person who sort of was bizarrely acting up, and it attempted to ruin the weekend for others, but the organizers kind of rallied together and corralled him away, and he ended up finishing his project, and it was all good, but it was a little bit of a hard time. And so we didn't have a code of conduct ahead of time, and so we didn't really have any leg to stand on what to try and do. So I would say, if you're going to have people you don't know come to a public event, definitely have a code of conduct that you can just have in hand to show to people. This is all basic, but it was really fun. This is just the things we did to fill people's time. I had a Switch set up, an NES Classic and SNES Classics. We're playing Contra and Super Mario RPG, and people just need a break. We had a mentor. This is Dr. Dave Frederick. He's actually another USC alumni, though a little bit different generation than me. But he heads up the Tesseract Center, and he came, and we had a breakfast, and he just sort of got everyone motivated, which was great for Saturday, because Saturday's the biggest day. I mean, everyone's there for the whole day, and having a big industry person come in and talk to them, really, I saw the motivation and the change that it sort of brought to people. Badges are just cool. People like badges. I mean, and they had their names on them, and so you didn't have to go around thinking, oh, I don't remember this person's name I just met. You just look at their badge, and no one's offended. It's completely fine. And it's also easy because we had them write down whether they're a programmer or artist or whatever on their badge. And I thought that was really nice and added a nice, for as small a crew as we had, everyone felt very much in a professional environment. It didn't really feel ad hoc. And I think the badges added a lot to that. Of course, you know, slay the final boss. Everyone presented their games and celebrated. We started planning the next Global Game Jam right then. We decided we were definitely going to make it an annual Unity user group thing. If you look in the background, that little sprite art, that's actually what the group, the little pair that had never made a game before, created, and it's awesome. It was actually really cute and fun, and I was beyond proud of them. Like, I sat there and helped them. It was cool. So, thank you. We can talk about some other stuff, but I wanted to have time for Q&A just for this section of the talk. What's up?
So I'm not familiar with global game.
Oh, by the way, first question.
Yeah.
Prize.
My third-
It doesn't work that way.
I'm a little bit confused about what global game jams are.
Yeah.
I've never heard of them until the previous.
I should have talked about that too, for sure. So Global Game Jam, global, it's huge. I want to say there were 350 sites, maybe 900 sites. There's sites all around the world. So yeah, I should have totally talked about that. So at 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, that's when it starts. So every region starts at their own 5 o'clock. So so we organizers all knew at 5 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, but we didn't show the what home means to you prompt until the right time zone. Because no one wants a spoiler, and you want people to all be inspired at the same time. It's not about spoiler, you just want that moment of unity between everyone. So, at 5 o'clock your group is supposed to watch the prompt and fill your teams out. And it happens in regions all across the world. The video actually had English, Spanish, Russian, with subtitles. And it was really cool. And there are actually 2 cuts of the video because one girl's in the most modest swimsuit you've ever seen in your life, but they had to have another cut because in some countries, even that was just out of the question to be able to show. But it's just kind of interesting when you're thinking about something truly global. Yeah, not everything's kosher worldwide. Not that kosher is really the right word to use there. But yeah, it was really, really neat. And so I think there were 900 games made. Maybe that's the 900 I'm getting at. One group in Brazil, I think it was, had 1,000 people at their game jam. They're showing pictures. It's like an auditorium seating, and it's full. It was awesome.
Is it more of a event or of a competition?
Not a competition at all. So there's no awards, which is a lot different from the the Techstars startup weekend thing. Everyone just makes their game, and basically the tenets are that inclusiveness principle. And when you're done, you actually have to upload the source code of the game and a playable build of the game as best you can. And so it all goes out to the Global Game Jam.
You mentioned that people divide up into groups to develop the games. Are there limits to the group size, and are the groups random, or do people come in knowing this group of 5 people works well together, we're going to enter in as a team?
Definitely,
Yeah, it's anything like Tulsa here, we have our Global Game Jam location, and it's kind of, some people come in as teams, their friends will all come together for it, but a lot of times it's just individuals show up and you get together with other individuals and just make a team like that.
Okay.
We had a mix of both in every team. The biggest team we had was 5 people, and I think 3 of them had worked quite closely with each other. 2 of them, one guy had been in the user group, and so he just happened to join them, and then another guy was practicing animation and joined them. So it's 3 people that sort of planned to be together, but it was a team of 5. Actually, cool thing, the animator ended up getting hired to work with the other 3 people. He's actually at the Tesseract Center now, so kind of successful. Someone got a job out of our Global Game Jam, which is really cool. The 2 people who didn't know anything, I don't know if they knew each other before or not. I couldn't quite figure out their dynamic. So a mix of both. I think most people are probably going to show up with someone else that they plan to be on their team, just because it's more fun to spend a weekend that way, I would think. But one guy showed up solo, joined the team.
I did that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any strict limits, being that it's not a competition. It's just
Yeah.
What about team sizes or average team sizes?
My goal was to not have a monolith team, just because I wanted there to be a couple of different projects that came out. But we didn't mandate it. It just sort of came from the alpha personalities, the people who really had an idea they felt strongly about. were the ones who sort of fought to have a team formed around them.
Whenever you're doing a game jam too, it's almost a detriment to have too big of a team.
Yeah, because you're on the timeline, the bigger the team, the bigger the project.
Yeah, and bigger the chance that someone's sitting around doing nothing because they're waiting on something else.
Say ideal team size is like 2, 5, 2, 4, 2, 5.
I think,
5 might be too much.
yeah, 5's a little,
cases.
3, 4, that's a pretty sweet group right there. Yeah, so we tried to make sure, we actually did do a little bit of, oh, maybe you should go up there. We didn't force anything.
You don't want to get the team with like 4 artists that can't code and then
Yeah.
4 coders that can't draw.
We had that at ours, and I think there was like 10 or 12 coders who all banded together, and they were literally in like a server room in the basement, like every cliche. But they didn't get their game done, and they all wandered away, and they weren't there at the end of the weekend. And they're like, what happened? Well, the ones that did well had like a programmer and an artist and a
Right.
musician.
Feeding off each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also your game looks and feels complete when you're done, because it's got some sound and it's got good graphics.
Yeah, the team of 5 that we had was, kind of the poster child for just a good mix of everything.
So I'm actually from Rogers. I was from
Oh, cool.
Rogers, Arkansas. And nice. Did you go to Heritage? Or did you go to Heritage?
Yes,
Nice.
for freshman year.
Cool.
But yeah, when I was there, I never really knew about like any of these groups in the area. I was kind of under the impression like, man, once I graduate, I'm gonna have to bust out. So I was just kind of wondering, when is the NWA, your group meeting up? You said it was like a monthly meeting.
Yeah, we meet the last Thursday of every month.
Last
And we sort of mix it up. Every now and then it'll be like a social one where we just meet at a restaurant. There's this brewery that we like to go to. More often than not, though, we're at the Brewer Family Entrepreneurship Hub. Not, the guy's name's just Brewer. It's not what you would
It's
think.
like you were saying, I would love to stay in the NWA or Tulsa area. I just need to be able to find like the connections and stuff.
Yeah, funny thing, I went to Unite Los Angeles in 2016, and I was like, I'm gonna make a Unity user group. It's gonna be so awesome. And I went down to talk to the person about it, and she's like, oh, well, we've got one in Fayetteville. It's like, what? So I signed up for it, and I never got the emails. I had a bad setting and meetup basis, so I thought it was like a dead group. Maybe a year or so later, I was like, I wonder if they ever did anything. And I got on and looked, and they'd had a meeting like every month, and the meetings looked really cool, and I was like, shit, how did I miss out on all this? So I went to a meeting, and I've been going to all of them that I can. The only time I don't go is if I'm out of town or something. And really great group. I love being a part of the group because I felt so alone being a game developer in Northwest Arkansas. Like, I was going to all of these startup type things, and I would talk to people, and they're like, yeah, we make JavaScript widgets for Walmart. That's like, okay, I can't relate with you guys at all. I went through that for like a whole year. And finally hearing someone be like, oh yeah, my update loop did a find all in it, and whoops, like that was a big frame drop. I was like, this is the place for me. So, love it. And we're typically in Fayetteville, but we are gonna have a meetup this summer in Bentonville. That's where I live. To try and bring in, I don't like driving all the way to Fayetteville, and we're trying to just grow the area.
You're on Meetup?
Yeah, I was gonna show, got a bunch of URLs pulled up right now.
Don't know if I could go to Fayetteville. I'm from Oklahoma City, but it sounds cool.
Fayetteville's how long is the drive is it?
From Fayetteville to Oklahoma City is gonna be like 3.5 to 4 hours.
From here.
Here's our user group.
I mean, it's 2.5 hours to get there.
We actually just did a side quest. We did a hike, which is really cool. Brain and Brain is a little company. They made the game Burly Men at Sea. One girl's originally from Searcy. She and her husband lived in California and then moved to Arkansas and had their little game company, and they hosted the hike.
That was the only company I could ever find. I was trying to find like gaming companies in NWA.
Yeah, they're active members in the group. They're co-organizers.
So the people who made Burly Men were with you on this?
Yeah. This is David Condolora and his wife Brooke.
Do you have any Do you have like a flyer or anything for the meetups?
I wish that I did, but no. But you can,
You just go to
Right down there.
meetup.com and search here.
yeah.
Yeah.
NWA Unity User Group,
Mhm.
that's you?
Yeah, yeah, and we'd love to have, we've been talking about how we can try and cross-pollinate with other organizations. I'm actually here because David bailed on presenting here and sort of threw me under the bus. I was like, Andy organized the game jam, send him. And I was like, oh, okay. I presented at Heartland Gaming Expo though, so I was confused, and it was like, oh, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. We just wanted to tie in with the CSG programs.
So those are, we just had a talk this morning about trying to get on GameDevMap.com and put our
Yeah.
companies there. This guy, Adam, he's a solo guy. He works on a lot of different projects as a consultant. He's actually awesome to have in the group because he's so technical, and he's always keeping track of the latest release notes, and talking to him is awesome because he's like, oh, well, did you know like this module just came out of beta or preview, and tells you about it, and you're like, I can't wait for the next meetup for him to tell me that stuff because I'm the nerd out.
You guys talk mostly about Unity?
Mhm. We talked about game dev too. We had a really cool, so our last meetup, I thought was really neat. Tesseract Center built a, so this painting is at Crystal Bridges Museum. You guys know that?
Yeah.
And about 7 years ago, Dave Frederick had an idea that he wanted to like walk into that painting. So they had a VR demonstration where they had rebuilt the painting, and all these different people actually have real meaning, and there's like a history book on this painting about like all these different people. Some of them aren't included and stuff, and so it's kind of a simulation more than a game, but you can sort of follow the branching narratives. They're super into narrative-driven gameplay.
That's neat.
I played it. It was really cool. They're trying to get a grant now to take it out. They just had like a little alpha of it. They're trying to get a grant from the government to actually build a more complete one. Their postmortem's hilarious too because they were using Mixamo, and they talked about how Mixamo can't make children, and so they showed like the kid that they had in the game, just like a squished down little adult male. It was so bizarre looking. And I saw him when I did the demo. I was like, ooh, freaked out. So yeah, that's happening. We're actually doing micro talks next. Just a full plug for the group. We're active, and
Did you guys
you
talk
can always
much
request
about-
to join.
Did you talk much about the like GDC keynote that Unity did, where they announced like all their new stuff?
Yeah, I was at GDC. I was late. I didn't realize that the line opened 30 minutes before the door, so I didn't make it into the
You in San
keynote
Francisco?
proper. Yeah,
Yeah, I went there too.
yeah, it was awesome.
It was
wasn't
sweet.
It was a really good year.
You're
Did
talking
you
about the
do-
badges, like walking outside in the street and seeing hundreds of people with the GDC badge was really neat. You just go, these are my people,
Oh,
everywhere.
it's fantastic.
It was so cool.
I hadn't been in like 7 years.
I'd never been, it was amazing. And talking to game devs was like the biggest thing I wanted to do.
Yeah, did you have a conference pass or the expo
I just got
pass?
to Expo and I just went to the indie side and just talked to every game dev who wanted to talk, which was all of them.
Did you do the control alt? Did you check out that, or alt control?
Oh, the all control, yeah.
Wasn't
They
that
had a-
so awesome?
They had a game where you moved a robot around. They built a robot out of random stuff, and like you moved the robot's arms and legs to move your character on screen. It
welcome
was
to come
so hard to do, but it was so cool. Like you had to twist his head with a TV, you had to tune in the rabbit ears to get the game started, and you had to move the robot like that, like he's in an armchair. You use the armchair lever. Yeah, every game should be controlled by a robot in an armchair.
It sounds more like an art project.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it
but
was
they
like
had
that.
like 50 of them. It wasn't just like a
Yeah.
one-off thing. Like
Yeah.
they had a Guitar Hero game, but there were light strips, and so when you played a note, it'd send down the light strip, and so you had to like run defense and play notes in combat, and also try and like send. It was really cool.
Sounds neat.
I wanted to show the game that, just one of the games. I think they were all pretty cool, but this one in particular was fun. So these guys, I wanted to talk about scope in your projects. These guys wanted this, so this whole idea is that this is a post-apocalyptic world. Basically everyone's died, but this home had a future. It had like a home automation system like Smart House, you guys remember that movie? And so that thing just like kept trying to keep the home going. So like this world is like completely screwed, and this little home automation system is just like trying to figure out what that means. So
Is this by chance based off that poem? That one?
I think it's a Ray Bradbury story.
there was a short story that Adam was talking about, and it could totally be what you guys are mentioning.
Yeah.
So they had all these lofty goals, but it really turned into like a turtle riding a Roomba. But it's pretty compelling, and see the little mice there on top of the turtle? That was made by that animator who had never met these people and is now working with them directly. I've never tried to play this before, so I'm not very good at this.
I think you're doing very well.
Yeah.
The idea was that different things would happen in this world and you would have to react to them. And the home automation system basically slowly adapts, and instead of trying to keep human systems alive, it like repurposes systems. So like the HVAC unit is now used to keep the climate warm and moist because it's got turtles and that's what the turtles want. And so it's like monitoring all the machine learning and everything, which is really cool. But of course, like, it's a one weekend event. Like, you're not going to get all that done. I'm going to click this one and see what happens. So there was like a cooking simulation, and this one of those, it didn't work. Like, when the guy was presenting it, he had spent all weekend on it, and he tried to add a feature at the end, and it all broke. So I don't know if you guys have ever done that.
Yeah.
But that's just sort of the way things go. Anyways, I was really proud of that group.
Looks like a cool concept.
Yeah, that's neat.
We just look at our Global Game Jam site itself. Oh, this is the meetup one. What's this? No, that's meetup. This is ours. So one guy had this bulldog that he'd been working on for a long time, and I guess there's no video. But he made some animation for it. Like, that was what he wanted to do, and so my job was just to be like, you should totally do that, man. Make it happen. Yes.
About how many people, like the once a month meeting, about how many people do you see every month? Because I noticed you have like more over 300 in the group.
Yeah, I'd say we see between 15. I'd say 15 is kind of like the standard. When we do the social ones, it's usually fewer, because there's just less draw, because it's not really about Unity, even though we do talk Unity and talk shop a lot. But at the post-mortem for that Pointer Zine in Brooklyn, I think we had 15 people. Dave usually goes to Loaf and Joe's and gets pizza for everybody, and that has a bit of a draw, if you know what I mean.
That's one way to bring them
Yeah, Loaf and Joe's has good pizza, and it's dirt cheap. So we had those three projects. Hestia, this is the one that the little group made that had never made a game before. I ended up working on this game a lot, because I had mistakenly told them to use the 2D toolkit, like it'll be great. And then that wasn't really the idea that they had. And it was just like so hard-coded to work in the way that it expected. And so when they wanted to tweak it even just a little bit, it was a nightmare, basically. But I was super happy for them, because here's just some screenshots. Like, they had death. The whole idea that they had was what home means to you. So as you left your home, you had to gather resources, and you slowly lost health as you were away. So you had to like gather enough resources to make it to the next day and make it back to your home before your health ran out. And you fought, this dog, and she hand drew the dog and hand drew this character. The tile sprites mostly came just from the 2D toolkit, but they repurposed them for what they wanted, which was pretty sweet. And the other project, I don't think I can run it. It had like this whole back end that handled these images, but it was fun. I guess they don't have the picture, but it was just all made to feel like a sticky board, and it was just supposed to be a fun game to play, like when you come home after having a few beers and like just trying to kick it for an hour before going to bed. Well, we're nearly out of time in the presentation, but I also, I was supposed to talk a little bit about development, but I guess, does anyone have any questions more about Global Game Jam, or questions about Unity or GDC or anything?
I kind of had a question about your company. You mentioned that like on your website you have like your job section. What type of stuff are you looking for? Your company looking for?
I was going to ask that.
Sure. Currently, so this is kind of my flagship game that I've been working on, Consortia, but I also have other games that I worked on. And this was the posting that I put up. So I'm looking for a software engineer, hopefully someone who's actually shipped a game. They don't have to be like an industry veteran or anything, but someone coachable, someone who has a desire to learn, and just here's the different things that I sort of wanted them to have, because I build so many projects for myself and other people. In the industry, I ended up being a manager, which means, you know, you only get to write code 50% of the time, because the other 50% you're making architecture diagrams, talking to investors, and like, you just don't get to do all the development that you want. So you have to trust your team to do it, which means you need a team that's coachable and ready to work, basically. So if you meet those qualifications, feel free to apply. Apply at moonlightgames.net. That's the email address, or I think if you click this, it might take you to Unity Connect. This posting might be expired. So I've also used Unity Connect. I hired a guy who's working with me on Photon for a game that I'm building. This is an ugly screenshot prototype that we have, but this is the game that we're building for this company in LA called Cinema World. It's like you're a VIP in New York City and has all this high fashion couture stuff. It's been pretty cool. I enjoy it, but the team's just growing. We're getting a project manager in a couple of weeks that we hired. I'm happy, but also super stressed. Like, if you own your own game development company, you will not have a good night's sleep, like, just basically ever. But every now and then, it's like super rewarding. I was driving up here and just excited about being a part of the community around here, excited to be able to contribute and connect over here, and I sort of got goosebumps. But that's, yeah, you don't usually get reverse goosebumps. You just feel terrible. It's like, as a consultant, everything's your fault, and nothing's your like credit. So when you nail it, like the CEO's just like, fuck yeah, our company rocks. And when you screw it up, he's like, it's your fault. Which is rough. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I was really tired of being in the big, I wasn't even in the big leagues. I worked for just a small indie company. But they were big enough to where I didn't have enough autonomy and, not authority, that's the wrong word, input. Like, if I had a game design thing that I wanted to put into the system, it just didn't work that way.
How big a company was it?
When I started, it was 50 people. When I left, it was like 16. So I survived every round of layoffs, really, but they had just lofty goals, right? So they gathered millions, and then the team was just too big. Which I think is very typical in the game industry. You're either growing or you're dying, quote Big Tom Callahan, Tommy Boy. Yeah. I did want to just click through my Consortia project. This is a different talk that I gave, but when I was trying to talk about development, you can see my email address there. So this is an MMO that I've been building for several years now. And this is sort of what I want to be the ultimate thing that my company is working on. And when I did this talk, I was just talking about cool systems that I'm using, like Dialogue System for Unity is a really great plugin that I've been using. You can link, it's very visual, so you link together all your nodes and have all of your systems that you're using. Really cool, I liked it. I talked a bit about the development cycle. You know, we have a REST service that's custom. We don't use Firebase or anything like that. I've been writing it all. And, you know, project management didn't come as much into play in the Global Game Jam, but Trello is super awesome. I don't know if you guys have used Trello, but I'll just give you a sampling of what Trello looks like.
What was the one a minute ago with the dialogue?
It's the dialogue system for Unity.
Dialogue system?
Is that just a plugin?
Yeah, it's on the asset store. I want to say it's like $40. So you basically make these cards and you drag the cards around. You know, here's a sprint that I've planned. We had a Pixel Pop demo last summer. And so you just sort of drag the things through, and it's really helpful for tracking everything, because if you're making a game with more than just yourself, you need version control, you need project management, you need automation basically for your pipeline. Because if someone can only work because they talk to you, they're not going to be able to work. If you're trying to work together with them and crush bugs, there's going to be a time where like you're just sitting there while the other guy's working on it, and you're like, yeah, it's much better to like take your story, you know, put it in doing, go in there, put yourself as the member for the story, and start working on it and like get it done. It's much better to spend that extra few hours planning out what you're going to do, because then you're able to, you know, if it's midnight, you don't have to wait for someone else to finish their bug. You can just do what you want to do. Not that I recommend working at midnight. Goal that I had this year was to hire 3 people and to quit work by 6 p.m. Really, really hard to quit work by 6 p.m., but so far I've hired 2.
You're almost there.
Yeah, but quitting at 6 p.m. is the hardest. But I really encourage, like, someone was talking about crunch in a meeting earlier, like, don't do it to yourself, because it's really not worth it. Like, you need family, you need food, friends, like, relationships really matter. If you're sitting there just working on your game, you know, you can last like 2-3 years. I did doing that a lot, like coming home, just doing that, but you'll burn out, and then you might not finish your game, or you might leave the industry because you don't find joy in it. So make sure you're playing games too. Just back to this. I
Does your
didn't
goal of leaving
have
by
good
6
stuff.
p.m. include anything about like starting at 3 a.m.?
It basically does. To quit at 6 p.m., it essentially means I can only have had like 1 beer the day before, because I have to be able to wake up fresh and ready to put a diaper on my baby and take him to daycare and put in like my solid 8 and 9 hours. I take a 10-minute lunch. I usually watch Pokemon during it because I completely zone out because it's so childish and like non-connected to the world. Fantastic. I'd suggest something like that. Don't watch a sitcom, don't watch an action movie. Like, find something that's just completely tangential to the real world and watch it. Just relax. Like, make sure you relax. I love the asset store, probably going over time, but dialogue system for Unity is so cool. In GUI, I still use it, like it still has some places. I think Unity's GUI system that they came out with, I've been using it on the Cinema World project. And I used to always think I'm going to remove all NGUI and only use Unity's GUI system. And now that I'm using a lot, I'm like really disappointed in it, because there's a lot of things in it that don't work as you'd expect, don't work at all, or just aren't fun to use because they're a pain. And I really think the guy who made NGUI thought it through a lot more from like the user experience side of it. So definitely asset store plugins. Although something I'm realizing now in my game, things don't have cohesion. So one of the people that I just talked to is actually going to come through and do an artistic pass through things like sort of tone mapping the colors together, thinking about mid-maps of some of our terrain textures. I'm a programmer, so like the things that I put in there for functionality, like I want this gameplay system, but I'm not saying that that means it looks the best or anything like that. Anywho, those are really helpful packages, and I wanted to talk about Unity game development just a little bit. So let's show the thank you slide and say thank you guys.
Thank you.